Ava Marshall knew the bell was wrong before anyone laughed at it. William Elliott had just rolled lot 214 onto the auction floor when she heard the clapper strike the bronze. It should have made a clear, carrying note, even with the dent along the lower rim. Instead, it gave one flat knock, like a spoon against a thick saucepan. The warehouse was cold enough for everyone's breath to show. Dealers stood between rows of folding chairs, drinking coffee from paper cups, while strangers sorted through the last pieces of Thomas Marshall's life. His workbench had sold. His watch had sold. The walnut desk, where he'd taught Ava to compare drawer joints, had gone to a dealer from Boston. Now, his old fire bell sat on a scarred furniture cart beneath the fluorescent lights. William looked down at his list. Bronze station bell, he said, cast in 1954, removed from the old Barrow Street engine house. Considerable wear, one significant dent. Clapper present, though the tone could use some help. That brought a few smiles. Jason McKinney stood near the loading door with his hands in his coat pockets. He'd spent most of the morning watching prices on his phone. When he finally looked at the bell, he laughed. "That thing's scrap," he said. A dealer tapped the rim with his knuckle. "Not good scrap." More people laughed, including two employees who'd worked beside Ava for years. She kept her bidder card in her lap. William started at $50. No one moved. He tried $25. A man in the second row shook his head before William even finished. William paused, looked across the room, and found Ava at the end of the last row. $5, he said. Ava raised her card. Jason turned around. "Seriously? $5 from Ava Marshall," William said. "Do I hear 10? The room stayed quiet. "Come on, Ava," Jason said. "You don't even have anywhere to put it." She kept the card raised until William saw it clearly. He brought the hammer down almost at once, sold for $5. Jason gave a short clap by himself. "There you go. You won the only thing in the building nobody could resell." Ava lowered her card. She didn't answer him. If she had, her voice might have shown too much. 8 weeks earlier, she'd still believed she belonged there. Thomas had died in January, on a Tuesday morning before sunrise. Snow had covered Barrow Street, softening the warehouse roofs and the brick face of Marshall and Sons auction house. Ava had been sitting beside his hospital bed when his breathing changed. Mark arrived 20 minutes later. Lisa came after him with a comb and a clean shirt for Thomas. Practical things nobody needed anymore. Jason didn't come until noon. By then the nurses had removed the water cup and the folded blanket. Ava stood at the window, looking down at the plowed hospital lot. She'd spent the night holding Thomas's hand. Now she couldn't remember when she'd let go. Mark touched her shoulder. "You should get some sleep," he said. "I need to call William. Granddad had the Thursday sale scheduled." "That's handled." She turned from the window. "What do you mean?" "I called the office." "You canceled it?" Jason did. Thomas had never canceled an auction because of weather, illness, or grief. Once, during a power failure, he'd moved a sale into the loading bay and had Isaac Burton park his truck with the headlights aimed at the tables. Ava knew none of that mattered now. Still, hearing that Jason had canceled Thursday without speaking to her felt like the first lock turning. Mark looked tired. He was 56, but that morning he seemed older around the eyes. He had loved Thomas in the careful, disappointed way sons sometimes love fathers, who never quite become easy to please. "We'll sort out the business later," he said. "Today, we just get through today." Ava nodded because there was nothing else to do. The funeral came 6 days later, at St. Brendan's. Thomas's plain oak coffin stood beneath the high Parish windows, while wet snow slid from people's shoes onto the old tile floor. Every dealer in Portsmouth seemed to be there. Retired firefighters filled 2 pews. Men who hadn't spoken to Thomas in 15 years came forward and told Ava he'd once helped them when nobody else would. Isaac stood beside her through the service. At 61, he had the square hands and bent knuckles of someone who'd spent most of his life repairing what other people had damaged. He'd worked with Thomas for more than 30 years. His gray suit pulled at the shoulders, and there was a pale strip of sawdust caught along one cuff. "You've got dust on you," Ava whispered before the service started. He looked at the cuff. "Your grandfather would be offended if I came clean." She almost smiled. After the burial, they returned to Thomas's house for coffee and sandwiches. Lisa had arranged everything. She moved through the rooms, collecting plates and thanking people, as if usefulness could keep grief from becoming untidy. Ava stayed near the front window. Thomas's chair was empty. His reading glasses rested on the table beside it, folded on top of a newspaper. Nobody had moved them yet. Mark came over with 2 cups of coffee. "You doing all right?" "No." He handed her one. "Me neither." For a few minutes, they stood together without talking. Ava wanted to believe that silence meant what it had when she was younger, that her father understood something without needing her to explain it. Then Jason crossed the room, carrying Thomas's ring of office keys. "I'm heading back to the warehouse," he said. "The alarm company needs the new contact information." Ava looked at the keys. "Why do you have those?" Jason stopped. "Because I'm operations manager. Granddad kept those with him. He's not here, Ava." Mark stepped between them, with the weary expression of someone interrupted by a familiar argument. "Not today." "I'm asking why Jason has all the keys." "And I answered," Jason said. Lisa appeared beside him. "There are employees waiting to know whether they still have jobs. Somebody has to keep things moving. I work there." "Of course you do," Lisa said. Her tone was gentle, which somehow made it worse. "Nobody said you didn't." Ava looked at Mark. He rubbed his forehead. "We'll meet with the attorney when everything's ready. Until then, Jason needs access." Jason slipped the keys into his pocket. "I'll see you Monday." He left through the kitchen door. Ava watched him cross the snowy yard toward Thomas's truck. "He's taking Granddad's truck too?" "It belongs to the business," Mark said. That was when she first understood that every object around her was about to be given a category: business, house, estate, personal effect. Anything that received a category could be carried away. She returned to work the following Monday. Marshall and Sons occupied an old brick warehouse on Barrow Street, 2 buildings down from St. Brendan's Parish Hall. Thomas had founded the business there in 1968, starting with farm tools, restaurant equipment, and furniture from houses nobody wanted to empty themselves. Over the years, he added 2 storage buildings and a narrow front office with frosted glass doors. Ava had begun her formal apprenticeship there at 18. By 26, she could tell hand-cut dovetails from machine copies at a glance. She knew how old pine smelled when a drawer had stayed closed for 50 years. She could spot new screws in an old hinge and fresh stain rubbed over damaged veneer. Thomas had taught her to look at the parts people rush past. "The truth usually isn't on the front," he used to say. "Turn it over." That Monday, his coat was still hanging behind his office door. Ava stood looking at it until Jason came in, carrying a cardboard box. "You can use the appraisal room for now," he said. "For now?" "We're changing the floor plan." "What are you doing with Granddad's office?" "Making it the sales content room." "It is the sales content room." That's where he wrote the catalogs. I mean, online content, video station, product photography. He put the box on Thomas's desk and began gathering paper files. Ava reached for one. "Those are consignment histories. They're scanned. Some of the notes aren't." Jason sighed. "You do this every time." "Do what?" "Act like changing anything is the same as destroying it." She took the folder from his hand. "Throwing away information is destroying it." "I'm not throwing it away." He pointed toward the box. A black marker line on the side read, "Shred." Ava looked at him. Jason pushed his hair back. He was 29 and carried himself as if a meeting had already started somewhere else. "Fine," he said. "Go through it first. You've got until Friday." There had been a time when Ava and Jason could eat dinner together without counting what each sentence cost. After Mark married Lisa, Jason had tried hard to act like an older brother. He'd driven Ava to a concert when Mark had forgotten. He'd helped her move into her first apartment. Things changed when he joined the business. Thomas trusted Ava's eye. Jason trusted numbers on screens. Neither man knew how to praise one without irritating the other. So Ava became the argument between them. She spent that week saving Thomas's handwritten notes from the shred box. She worked at a folding table in the appraisal room, where people came through without knocking. Jason removed her access to the business bank account. Mark said it was temporary. Lisa changed the passwords for Thomas's email and auction database. She said the attorney had advised it. Nobody told Ava to leave. They simply made it harder for her to remain. The family meeting took place in early March at the lawyer's office. Rain struck the windows, and a portable heater hummed beneath the conference table. Ava sat across from Mark, Lisa, and Jason. Their attorney, Daniel Pierce, placed 4 bound folders in front of him. Ava looked at the folders. "Why are there only 4 copies?" Daniel glanced at Mark. Mark folded his hands. "You can look at mine." That answer chilled her more than the rain. Daniel began with the house. Thomas had transferred it through an existing family trust. Mark and Lisa would take possession. The auction business passed to Mark, with management control assigned to Lisa and Jason. Business accounts, vehicles, warehouse inventory, and equipment remained under the company. Ava waited. Daniel moved to personal accounts, investments, and household contents. The shares were divided among Mark, Lisa, and Jason. Ava waited until Daniel closed the last folder. "What did Granddad leave me?" No one answered immediately. Mark shifted his folder toward the center of the table. "It isn't as simple as that." It sounded simple. "Ava," Lisa said, "Thomas structured things over many years. Some of these arrangements were already in place." "What did he leave me?" Mark lowered his voice. "There's no separate distribution to you." She heard the heater click off beneath the table. "There has to be." Daniel spoke carefully. "Your name isn't included as a beneficiary of the operating estate." Ava looked at her father. "I worked there for 8 years. "We know," Mark said. "I was with him every day. This isn't about how much he loved you." "Then what is it about?" Jason leaned back. He'd been silent until then. "The business needs one direction," he said. "Granddad knew you and I couldn't run it together." "He told you that?" "I'm telling you what makes sense." She turned to Daniel. "Was there a newer will? The documents we have are valid." "That's not what I asked." Daniel hesitated. "We have no later will." Lisa placed one hand on the folder. "Your grandfather became less organized near the end." Ava stared at her. Thomas had appraised a set of 18th century naval instruments 3 weeks before he died, and corrected Jason for transposing 2 lot numbers. He forgot lunch sometimes. He never forgot ownership. "Are you saying he didn't know what he signed?" "I'm saying grief can make people look for an explanation that isn't there." Mark said her name softly. "Ava." She looked at him. "Did you know before today?" His eyes moved toward the rain-streaked window. "That was enough?" "How long?" "We didn't know every detail." "How long, Dad?" "A few months." She sat very still. Jason picked up his water glass, but didn't drink from it. Lisa watched Ava with the tense patience of someone waiting for a scene she could later describe as unreasonable. Ava asked, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Mark's face tightened. "Thomas asked me not to interfere. So, you knew he'd cut me out, and you let me keep working. I thought he might change it. Did you ask him why?" "We had words about it." "What words? This isn't helping." "What did he say?" Mark pressed his palms against the table. "He said you would know what to do." Ava felt the sentence land, but it gave her nothing to hold. Know what to do with what? He wouldn't explain. Jason gave a faint shake of his head. He was being Thomas. "No," Ava said. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make him sound confused because it benefits you." Lisa closed her folder. "That's enough." Daniel cleared his throat. "There is one remaining matter. Mr. Marshall's personal effects weren't specifically assigned. The family has elected to liquidate them through a public auction." Ava turned to Mark. "His personal things?" "The house has to be cleared," he said. "Let me go through them. That wouldn't be fair to everyone. Everyone already got something." Lisa's mouth hardened. "You're welcome to attend the sale." Ava looked from one face to the next. "You want me to bid on Granddad's things like a stranger?" "No one wants this to hurt you," Mark said. She stood and put on her coat. He reached for her hand. "Please don't walk out like this." She pulled the sleeve straight at her wrist. "How would you like me to walk out?" No one followed her. Outside, the rain had turned cold and sharp. Ava crossed the parking lot without opening her umbrella. She sat in her car, put both hands on the steering wheel, and tried to decide where to go. Her apartment lease ended in April. She'd planned to move into the small room above the auction office while she saved for a house. Thomas had approved it before Christmas. Now Jason had turned that room into storage, and Ava no longer had a job she trusted would exist by summer. Her phone rang. Isaac's name appeared on the screen. She answered, but couldn't speak. "Well," he said. She watched rainwater run across the windshield. "They left me out." Isaac was quiet. "Everything?" he asked. "The business, the house, the accounts?" "All of it." "That doesn't sound like Tom. Everyone keeps saying that. I'm not everyone." She closed her eyes. "They're selling his things," she said. "Public auction. I heard." "You knew?" "William called me this morning. He didn't know whether you'd been told." Ava rested her forehead against the steering wheel. I'm allowed to bid. Isaac used a word Thomas would have objected to in church. Despite herself, she let out one broken laugh. Come to the shop, Isaac said. I've got soup. I'm not hungry. That has never stopped soup. His restoration shop stood behind the old engine house, in a long cinder-block building with patched windows and a roof Isaac complained about every spring. Ava found him at a work table, repairing the carved foot of a mahogany sideboard. A pot sat on the hot plate near the sink. He didn't hug her. Isaac knew she couldn't manage kindness at that moment without falling apart. He set a bowl on the bench and handed her a spoon. She ate 3 bites. What did Mark say? Isaac asked. That Granddad told him I'd know what to do. Isaac stopped sanding. Ava noticed. What? Nothing. That wasn't nothing. He said odd things near the end. You just told me this didn't sound like him. It doesn't. Did he tell you something? Isaac looked down at the sideboard foot. Not something I can make useful. What does that mean? It means Tom kept his own counsel when he wanted to. She pushed the bowl away. Isaac waited, then covered the soup with a plate. You can use the annex, he said. The workshop annex was a drafty room behind the loading area. It had once stored church pews, cracked picture frames, and broken clocks waiting for parts. For work? Ava asked. For whatever you need. I can't pay much. We'll discuss money when you have some. I don't want charity. Good. I need the place sorted, and you're the only person stubborn enough to do it. She looked through the open door. Dust covered the concrete floor. One window had been boarded from the inside. An iron radiator stood cold beneath it. It doesn't have a bathroom. Mine's 20 steps away. It smells like varnish. So do you. Ava looked at him. Isaac's face softened. You need somewhere to put your feet, Ava. Start with that. By the day of the auction, she had moved 6 boxes into the annex. Clothes went on a borrowed garment rack. Her dishes sat beside jars of screws and brass fittings. Isaac found her a narrow bed, and Ava hung an old quilt over the boarded window to stop the wind. Then she went to watch her grandfather's life receive lot numbers. The sale lasted almost 7 hours. Mark stayed in the office. Lisa spoke with buyers and made notes beside the higher prices. Jason came and went, pleased whenever something sold above estimate. Ava bid on Thomas's reading glasses and lost them to a woman collecting vintage frames. She stopped at $40 for his pocket knife. His watch passed $300 before she lowered her card. By late afternoon, she had bought nothing. Then William rolled out the fire bell. Ava remembered it hanging in the back corner of Thomas's private workroom. He'd bought it from the town years ago when the engine house was cleared. As a girl, she'd once tried to ring it. Thomas caught the clapper before it struck. Not inside, he'd told her. That bell was made to call people from 3 streets away. At the auction, it couldn't call anyone from 3 feet. She bought it for $5. When the sale ended, Ava carried the bell toward the loading door, with both arms wrapped around its cold bronze body. It was heavier than she remembered. The clapper swung inside and struck another dull note. Jason held the door open. You want a receipt for your investment? He asked. William, standing behind her, said, She has one. Jason smiled at him. I was joking. I wasn't. Ava carried the bell outside. Isaac waited beside his truck. He took one look at what she held and lowered the tailgate. That old thing, he said, you know it? I helped Thomas take it down. From the engine house? Isaac nodded. He nearly broke my shoulder with it. Together they lifted the bell into the truck bed. The clapper knocked against the bronze again. Isaac frowned. What? Ava asked. He reached inside and steadied it with one hand. Then he let it swing. The same muffled sound came back. Probably cracked, Ava said. Maybe. Isaac looked toward the warehouse, where Jason was watching through the open door. He pulled a moving blanket over the bell. Let's get it home, he said. Ava almost corrected him. The annex wasn't home. It was a place with a borrowed bed and a quilt over a broken window. But she climbed into the truck without saying so. That evening, they set the bell on 2 wooden blocks in the middle of the annex. Ava cleaned auction dust from its dented rim, while Isaac repaired the radiator. Rain ticked against the metal roof. When the heat finally came through, the pipes knocked hard enough to make them both look up. Isaac packed his tools. You all right here tonight? I will be. He nodded toward the bell. $5 isn't bad. Jason says I can't resell it. Jason thinks price and value are the same thing. Ava ran her thumb over the old casting mark. What do you think it's worth? Isaac put on his coat. Right now? She nodded. $5. That got a real smile from her. After he left, Ava locked the annex door and sat on the edge of the narrow bed. The bell stood across from her beneath the bare ceiling bulb. Every obvious thing had gone to someone else. The house, the business, the money, the keys, even Thomas's reading glasses. She had a dented bell that wouldn't ring. Before turning out the light, Ava crossed the room and moved the clapper once more. It struck with that same strange dead sound. She held it still, feeling its weight in her palm. Something about it didn't match its size. Thomas had taught her what to do when that happened. She turned it over. The underside carried a thick crust of black paint, old soot, and green corrosion. Ava switched on the work lamp and angled it closer. 4 mounting holes had been cut through the bronze crown. 2 were worn oval from years of movement. The casting number was still visible beneath the grime. She ran one finger around the base of the clapper. It had been repaired at some point. A narrow brass collar sat where the iron shaft entered the bulb. The collar had been filed smooth, then darkened to match the surrounding metal. Whoever did the work had wanted it to disappear. Ava took out her phone and photographed it. She nearly called Isaac. It was after 10, though, and his truck had been gone for an hour. He spent Tuesday nights with his older sister in Dover, fixing whatever she'd decided was broken that week. Last Tuesday, it had been a cabinet hinge. The week before, her television remote. Ava set the phone down. She could wait until morning. That decision lasted 4 minutes. She found a kitchen scale in one of her boxes and placed it on the workbench. The scale was meant for flour, not fire bells. She removed the clapper pin, caught the clapper before it dropped, and lowered it onto the scale. The display blinked, went blank, and came back with an error. Helpful, she said. She placed the clapper beside the bell. It was almost as long as her forearm, with a dark iron shaft and a rounded striking bulb. She lifted it in one hand, then picked up a solid fireplace weight of similar size from Isaac's scrap bin. The fireplace weight pulled harder against her wrist. Ava changed hands and tried again. There was no question. The clapper was too light. She carried it to her bed and set it on the floor within reach. Then she turned off the lamp and lay beneath the old quilt, listening to rainwater find 3 separate leaks in the roof. She didn't sleep much. At 7, the next morning, Isaac unlocked the main shop and found her waiting beside his coffee maker with the clapper in both hands. "Good morning to you too," he said. "Hold this." He put down his keys and took it. His first expression was annoyance. His second lasted less than a second, but Ava saw it. "You felt it," she said. "I felt a piece of metal before coffee. It's too light." Compared with what? Compared with its size. That's an impression. It's an informed impression. Isaac filled the coffee pot at the sink. "Those are the dangerous kind." Ava followed him. "There's a repair collar at the top. It's brass, but someone treated it to look like iron. People make ugly repairs. This isn't ugly, it's careful." He spooned coffee into the filter. Careful isn't suspicious. It is when someone works that hard to hide the careful part. Isaac looked at the clapper again. "Did you take it out yourself?" "Yes." "You could have dropped it through your foot." "I didn't." A stirring defense. He set it on the bench and pressed his thumb along the repaired collar. Ava watched his face, waiting for another small change. "Thomas did this," he said. "You're sure?" "I'm sure he darkened the brass. He used lampblack and linseed oil, always got it under his nails." "When?" "No idea." "You helped him remove the bell. That doesn't mean I kept a diary of its plumbing. It's not plumbing." "Then stop questioning me like I installed it." Ava stepped back. Isaac rarely snapped at her. He knew it too. He turned on the coffee maker and leaned against the counter while it began to hiss. "Sorry," he said. "What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing about that clapper. That wasn't my question." He glanced toward the wall clock. "I have a customer coming at 8. I can help." "You need paying work. I need to know why Granddad altered this. Those things aren't mutually exclusive." The customer arrived 20 minutes early, sparing Isaac from more questions. Her name was Marjorie Penn, and she brought 2 dining chairs in the back of a station wagon. Her late husband had tried to repair one with roofing nails. Isaac carried the chairs inside, while Marjorie explained that her grown daughter wanted her to buy a new dining set. "I don't want a new set," she said. "I want these not to put anyone on the floor." Isaac turned one chair over. "Ava can do them. Marjorie looked at Ava, then at the chair. Is she good? Better than I was at her age. Ava waited for him to add something dry. He didn't. Marjorie asked, what will it cost? Ava examined the split rail and the nails driven through it. The old glue had failed, but the wood loss was manageable. $120 for both, she said. That includes removing the nails, repairing the rails, and tightening every joint. I'll keep the finish as it is. When can I have them? Friday afternoon. Marjorie held out her hand. Do it. After she left, Isaac wrote Ava's name on the work tag and clipped it to the first chair. Your first customer, he said. My first customer in your shop. The annex is part of the shop. I thought the annex was somewhere to put my feet. You put them there. Now make them useful. He carried his coffee toward the rear workroom. Ava said, we still have to test the clapper. Isaac kept walking, after the chairs. That became their arrangement for the next several weeks. Ava worked on paying repairs during the day. The bell got the last hour before supper, provided nothing else had gone wrong. Plenty went wrong. The annex radiator leaked rusty water across the floor. A pane above the loading door cracked during a hard freeze. Ava's car needed a new alternator, which took most of what she earned from 6-chair repairs and a cedar chest. She received a letter from Marshall and Sons confirming that her employment had ended on the day of the auction. The letter called it a restructuring. Mark called that evening. I told Jason not to send it like that, he said. Ava stood on a ladder, pressing glazing putty around the replacement pane. Was I fired? You weren't fired. Am I employed? There was a pause. Not at the moment. Then the letter's accurate. It should have come from me. Would that change it? No, but I wanted to explain. She smoothed the putty with her thumb. What's the explanation? The business can't support 2 different approaches right now. You mean Jason's approach and mine. He's trying to keep the doors open. The doors were open. Expenses have changed. Online competition has changed. Thomas let inventory sit for years. Some things take time to find the right buyer. We don't have the money to wait for the right buyer every time. Ava climbed down from the ladder. Did you find the money to pay Jason? Mark let out a breath. Please don't turn every conversation into a fight. I didn't call you. I'm still your father. She looked through the new glass toward the yard. Isaac was outside, cutting warped boards away from the bottom of the annex door. Then answer one question as my father, she said. Did Granddad tell you why he left me nothing? I told you everything he said. He said I'd know what to do. Was there anything before that? Not that I understood. What does that mean? He was angry. We were both angry. About me, about the business. Ava waited. Mark went on. Jason had a buyer interested in the slow inventory. Thomas refused to discuss it. I told him the company couldn't keep being a museum. What did he say? He said we didn't know the difference between keeping and hoarding. That sounded like Thomas. Mark's voice softened. He wasn't being fair to any of us by the end. Ava looked at the bell across the room. The clapper lay on a folded towel beside it. Did you ever see him work on the engine house bell? No. Why? No reason. She ended the call before concern could become another route into her life. Isaac opened the annex door. Was that Mark? Yes. What did he want? To explain why being fired wasn't being fired. Isaac examined the new pane. Your putty line's uneven. Thank you. The glass will hold. Thank you. He nodded toward the clapper. Bring it. They carried it into the main workshop, where Isaac had cleared a space beside the drill press. On the bench sat a hanging scale, 2 calipers, a small magnet, and a reference book on historic fire equipment. You had all this ready, Ava said. I had work. You found a book. I own books. You cleared the bench. Are you going to enjoy being right, or are we going to examine the thing? She chose both, quietly. They measured the clapper first. Isaac noted its length and diameter on a pad. Ava found a similar model listed in the reference book, though the dimensions weren't exact. The expected weight was more than twice what the scale showed. Isaac weighed it again. Well, Ava asked. It's light, thank you. I didn't say you know why. They tested the shaft with the magnet. It held strongly along the upper section, then weakened near the rounded bulb. Mixed metals, Ava said. Possibly. Thomas wouldn't repair an iron clapper with that much brass. It's too soft. Not if he only needed the shape. What would be the point of keeping the shape? Isaac rotated the piece beneath the work light. That's the question. He applied a little solvent to the darkened collar. Brown-black residue came away on the cloth, revealing a thin line of yellow metal beneath it. Ava leaned closer. The collar wasn't simply fitted around the shaft. It was a sleeve. One edge had been soldered, filed, and treated. Under magnification, the repair line ran in a complete circle. "Can it unscrew?" she asked. Isaac gripped the bulb in a padded vise and tried the collar by hand. It didn't move. He warmed it gently and tried again. Nothing. "Could be threaded," he said. "Could be pinned or sealed. Everything is sealed until someone opens it." Ava looked at the drill press. Isaac followed her gaze. "No, you just said someone has to open it. I also said it may be pinned. If the bit catches wrong, we damage the sleeve. We can use a hand drill. We can leave it alone." She stared at him. "You don't mean that. I mean, we don't know what Thomas intended. He hit a repair. That doesn't make it ours to break. The family sold it to me for $5. William sold it to you. On behalf of the family. You know what I mean?" "No, I don't." Isaac took off his glasses and wiped them on his shirt. "Thomas valued privacy," he said. "Thomas is dead, I'm aware." "Then why are you protecting him from me?" Isaac put his glasses back on. "Because he was my friend before he became your mystery." The words stopped her. He loosened the vise and carried the clapper to the bench. For a while, the only sound in the shop came from the small heater beneath the sink. Ava knew Isaac's loyalty wasn't a locked drawer she could force. Thomas had hired him when other shops wouldn't trust a 28-year-old restorer with more skill than references. They'd worked together through 3 recessions, a warehouse flood, and the year Mark nearly sold his share of the business. There were parts of Thomas that belonged to those years, not to her. "I'm sorry," she said. Isaac covered the clapper with the towel. "So am I." They left it there. 2 days later, Ava walked across Barrow Street to the old engine house. The building had been shut for years. Its brick front faced the road beside the parish hall, with 2 tall bay openings sealed behind weathered wooden doors. The town had posted a faded notice near the side entrance, warning against unauthorized entry. Ava wasn't trying to enter. She wanted to see where the bell had hung. She stood on the pavement and looked up at the empty iron bracket above the roofline. One bolt remained in place. Rust ran from it down the brick like a narrow brown stain. The parish hall shared the side yard. Through its windows, Ava could see folding tables, stacked chairs, and 2 women arranging grocery bags. A white van waited near the ramp. A man in a clerical collar came out carrying a carton of canned soup. "Can I help you?" he asked. "I'm looking at the bell bracket." He shifted the carton against his hip. "That's a new one. My grandfather had the bell." "Thomas Marshall?" "Yes." The man smiled. "I'm Kevin Padilla," Ava introduced herself. "I'm sorry about Thomas," Kevin said. "He used to come by early on Thursdays, fix things without mentioning it." "That sounds like him." Kevin looked up at the bracket. "We've been trying to get the town to inspect that wall. They say the whole property may be reviewed for redevelopment." "What kind of redevelopment?" "Nobody seems to know until they want us at a meeting." The side door opened behind him. "Kevin, those bags aren't carrying themselves," a woman called. "I've been corrected," he said. "Would you like to help?" Ava spent the next half hour carrying groceries into the parish hall. Most were for the Elder Center's weekly meal service. The kitchen smelled of onions and coffee. A handwritten repair list was taped beside the refrigerator. At the bottom, someone had added, "Back steps loose again." Ava read it twice. When she returned to the workshop, Isaac was repairing a clock movement beneath a magnifying lamp. "The parish steps need work," she said. "They always need work. The town may redevelop the engine house." His tweezers stopped. "Who told you?" "Kevin Padilla." Isaac set the tweezers down. "Thomas fought that years ago." "Why?" "He said the parish needed the hall. The hall isn't part of the engine house." "No, but the lots run together strangely." "Does the parish own its lot?" "I assume so." Ava looked toward the covered clapper. Isaac looked too. Thomas had kept the engine house bell after fighting redevelopment beside a parish he'd quietly helped for years. None of it proved a connection. It was only enough to make ignoring the clapper feel like a choice. Ava pulled the towel away. "I'm going to open it," she said, carefully. "If you don't want to help, I understand." Isaac studied her for a long moment. Then he turned off the clock lamp. "We start with the solder," he said. They worked slowly. Isaac built a padded cradle to hold the clapper without marking it. Ava cleaned the seam with a wooden pick, following the full circle of the sleeve. Under the dark finish, they found a tiny filled hole near the collar. "A pin," Isaac said. He selected a drill bit narrower than the fill and fitted it into a hand brace. Ava held the work light while he cut through the soft solder. A small brass pin came loose and dropped onto the towel. Neither of them spoke. Isaac turned the sleeve. It moved less than the width of a fingernail. Ava gripped the other end with a strip of leather. Together, they worked it back and forth until the old residue gave way. The sleeve slid free with a dry scrape. The clapper was hollow. Inside sat a tight roll of yellowed parchment, sealed at both ends with dark red wax. Ava didn't reach for it at once. Isaac rested both hands on the bench. "Did you know?" she asked. "No." This time, she believed him. She used narrow wooden tongs to ease the roll from the cavity. The parchment resisted near the opening, then slipped free into her palm. A strand of faded blue thread had been wound around it beneath the wax. The seal carried a pressed letter M. Ava sat down. Isaac brought a clean sheet of blotting paper and placed it beneath the roll. "We shouldn't force it flat." I know you know." The wax at one end had already cracked. Ava loosened the thread without cutting it and let the parchment relax a little at a time. It smelled faintly of metal and old dust. Lines of black handwriting appeared first. Below them was a typed legal description. Ava read the heading, then she read it again. It was a deed dated 1961. The grantor was the city of Portsmouth. The buyer named on the next line was Thomas Marshall, unmarried, of Barrow Street. Ava followed the legal description with her fingertip, careful not to touch the ink. It named half an acre surrounding the decommissioned engine house and extending beneath the adjoining parish hall. At the bottom, beside a notary seal, was Thomas's signature. Isaac pulled over a chair but didn't sit. "What does it mean?" he asked. Ava kept reading until the words stopped making ordinary sense. "It means Granddad bought the land, the engine house, and the parish lot." "That can't be right. It's what this says." Isaac looked toward the shop windows, as if Barrow Street might appear different from inside. "Who owns it now?" Ava examined the recording stamp. It was faint but present, with a registry book and page number. She thought of the estate folders, the house, the business, the accounts, and every object assigned its proper category. No one had mentioned land beneath the engine house. No one had mentioned St. Brendan's. "I don't know," she said. She looked at the hollow clapper, then at Thomas's name on the parchment. But somebody went to a lot of trouble to make sure this didn't disappear. Isaac found 2 sheets of acid-free tissue and made a temporary folder. Ava photographed every inch before they moved it. "Don't put those pictures in your normal cloud account," he said. "You sound like Thomas." He was right about clouds. "You can't lock a cloud." She turned off automatic backup and copied the photographs onto 2 clean memory cards. One stayed in Isaac's safe. She put the other in the inside pocket of her coat. The original remained on the bench between them. "What now?" Isaac asked. "We confirmed the registry number." "At the registry?" "Eventually. I want someone independent to examine it first." "Who?" "Benjamin Lambert." Isaac nodded. Benjamin had examined disputed signatures and land records for several Marshall & Sons sales. Thomas respected him because he didn't improve his opinion to please whoever paid the invoice. Ava found his office number on an old work tag. She called before she could think herself into waiting. His assistant said he was away on a title case until Monday. Ava gave only her name and said she had a document needing authentication. She didn't mention the bell, the parish, or Thomas. When the call ended, Isaac folded his arms. "Monday's 4 days away." "I know." "What do we do for 4 days?" "We don't damage it." "That won't fill the time?" Ava looked through the shop window toward the engine house. "I want to know why he bought the lot." Isaac put the deed folder into his safe. "The parish may have old property files. Kevin didn't know who owned it. Kevin's been there 12 years. That parish has been losing records since before either of us was born. Someone might remember." Isaac checked the clock. "Not tonight." "Why not?" "Because the meal service is running, the kitchen will be full, and you'll ask questions while people are carrying hot soup." Ava put on her coat. He sighed. "I'll come with you." The parish hall was louder than it had been that morning. More than 40 adults sat at folding tables while volunteers moved between them with pitchers of water and baskets of bread. The room was warm, and every window had fogged at the edges. Kevin stood near the kitchen, arguing with a repairman about the freezer. "I'm not saying we won't pay," Kevin said. "I'm asking whether it can survive until next month." The repairman shook his head. "It survived until last month." Isaac gave Ava a look. The parish had problems without her bringing in another one. They waited beside the coat rack until Kevin finished. "If you've come to carry things again, I can keep you busy," he said. "We have a question about the property," Ava told him. "Is there anyone who knew the parish in the early 60s? Kevin looked between her and Isaac. "What sort of question? Who owned the land when the engine house closed?" His expression changed. "Why?" Ava had decided not to show the original. She took out her phone and opened a photograph of the deed. Kevin read the first lines. He asked for the phone, then seemed to think better of touching it. "Where did you get this?" "In something that belonged to my grandfather. This says Thomas bought the parish lot." "It appears to." Kevin looked across the crowded hall. A volunteer was helping an older man settle his walker against the wall. At the next table, two women divided a piece of pie. "We have always understood the land belonged to the parish," he said. "Do you have a deed?" "The diocese may. Have you seen it?" "No," Isaac asked. "Who handled the records before you?" "Several people. The person you want is Abigail Caldwell." A woman filling sugar bowls at the nearest table turned around. "You don't need to say my name as if I've died," she called. Kevin smiled despite himself. "Abigail, could we borrow you?" "You could try." She finished the sugar bowl and carried it to the table before joining them. She was 84, small and straight-backed, with a cream cardigan buttoned neatly to her throat. Her white hair was pinned at the sides with two brown clips, Kevin said. Ava found a property document from 1961. Abigail looked at Ava for a long moment. "Thomas's granddaughter?" "Yes." "You have Margaret's eyes." Margaret had been Ava's mother. Most people said that when they didn't know what else to say. Abigail said it like a settled fact and moved on. "What property document?" Ava showed her the photograph. Abigail took the phone. She enlarged Thomas's name, then the date. Her thumb stopped over the legal description. "Oh," she said. Kevin leaned closer. "You know about it? I knew once." "What does that mean?" "It means 65 years is a long time to remember, something nobody ever asks you." She handed the phone back. Ava said, "Did my grandfather own this land?" "He bought it." "You're certain?" "I was standing beside him when he promised we could keep using it." Kevin pulled a folding chair from the wall. "Please sit down. I've been sitting all afternoon. Then I need to sit down." Abigail waited while he placed 3 chairs around a small table. She remained standing until they all seemed ready to listen. Then she sat and folded her hands over her handbag. "In 1961, the city closed the engine house," she said. "There was talk of selling the building and the strip behind this hall to a fuel company. The parish didn't own enough ground to move the kitchen entrance. If that strip went, deliveries would have come through the front steps." "Why did the city own land beneath the parish hall?" Kevin asked. "It was one of those old arrangements. The first hall was built with permission, not paperwork anyone could find. People did things that way when everybody involved expected to be dead before it became a problem." Isaac sat beside Ava. Abigail continued. "Thomas was 24. He'd been with the volunteer crew at the engine house, and he knew the city wanted a quick sale. His father had left him a little money from a fishing boat. Thomas used nearly all of it to buy the whole parcel." "Why?" Ava asked. Abigail looked toward the kitchen doors. "Because this parish fed him." The room seemed to move around Ava without changing. Dishes clinked. Someone laughed near the far wall. A coffee pot gave a sharp hiss. "What do you mean?" "His father died in 1948. Thomas was 11. There wasn't money, and there wasn't family willing to take him for more than a few nights. St. Brendan's had a boarding house then. The rooms were over the old kitchen. He stayed here until he could support himself." Ava knew Thomas's father had died when he was young. She knew he'd left school early and worked around the harbor. She had never heard about the boarding house. "He never told me," she said. "He didn't tell many people. Thomas hated anyone knowing he'd needed help." Isaac gave a quiet sound that might have been agreement. Abigail glanced at him. "You knew?" "Not all of it." "You knew enough," Ava asked. "What exactly did he promise?" Abigail settled back in her chair. For a moment, she was looking at something none of them could see. The pastor worried Thomas would sell later. Thomas said the parish could use the land without rent as long as he owned it. The pastor wanted that in writing. Thomas said his word was writing enough. Kevin covered his face with one hand. Abigail noticed. Yes, it was foolish. We were all younger. Why didn't the parish keep a copy of the deed? Ava asked. Thomas didn't want people told that he owned the ground. He said it would embarrass the parish and make every repair his business. The pastor agreed to keep it quiet. I typed a short note for our files, but I haven't seen it in decades. Would it still be here? It might be in the archive cupboard. Kevin stood. Where's that? Abigail looked offended. You have an archive cupboard and don't know it? She led them through the kitchen, past shelves of canned vegetables and foil trays. Behind a rolling rack of tablecloths was a narrow wooden door painted the same beige as the wall. Kevin pulled it open. 3 metal filing cabinets stood inside. Cardboard boxes leaned above them in unsafe stacks. A broken music stand, 2 artificial wreaths, and an old electric fan blocked the floor. Isaac took off his coat. This could take a while. It took nearly 3 hours. They found baptism lists, boiler receipts, choir schedules, and envelopes of photographs without names. Abigail rejected every suggestion that they stop. She sat at the kitchen counter, reading folder labels while Ava and Kevin brought boxes to her. Near 10 o'clock, Isaac opened a file drawer marked Building. Inside was a thin folder from 1961. It held an invoice for plumbing work, 2 letters about the engine house closure, and a carbon copy of the note Abigail remembered. The paper had faded to brown at the edges. Kevin read it aloud. Mr. Thomas Marshall has purchased the Barrow Street engine house parcel and confirms continued parish use without charge. There was no legal description and no signature from Thomas. Only Abigail's typed initials appeared at the bottom. It won't prove title, Ava said. No, Abigail replied, but it proves I haven't invented the evening. Kevin sat against the counter. If Thomas owned it, who owns it after his death? Ava didn't answer. Isaac said, That's what we're trying to determine. Kevin looked at Ava. Worry had replaced surprise. The city sent us a notice last week. What notice? He left the archive cupboard and returned with an envelope from his office. The letter inside came from the Portsmouth Redevelopment Authority. The parish and engine house parcel was listed as assumed municipal property under review for public sale. A preliminary hearing would take place in May. The sale itself, if approved, was scheduled for the 3rd Friday of June. Ava read the date twice. They think the town owns it, she said. They've always acted like the town owns the engine house side, Kevin replied. We assumed the parish side was protected. The authority says both sit on one parcel. Abigail tapped the copy of the old note. Thomas wouldn't have allowed a sale. Thomas isn't here, Kevin said. No one had a useful answer to that. Ava folded the notice and returned it to the envelope. On the walk back to the workshop, Isaac carried the file folder beneath his coat to protect it from the rain. Abigail had insisted they take the carbon copy, provided Kevin signed a receipt for it. This is bigger than an old deed, Isaac said. I know. If the town sells before ownership is settled, the parish could spend years fighting whoever buys it. I know, and finding the deed inside a bell doesn't mean you own the land. I know that too. Isaac stopped under the light outside his shop. Then say what you're thinking. Ava looked across at the parish hall. The last volunteers were leaving through the side door. I'm thinking Granddad hid the only paper that could stop a sale, then left me out of the estate that should have included the land. Maybe he believed the bell would be enough. He taught me better than that. Her phone rang inside her coat. Mark's name appeared on the screen. It was too late for an ordinary call. Ava answered. Where are you? He asked. At Isaac's. I heard you were asking questions at St. Brendan's. She looked through the rain toward the hall. Who told you? Kevin spoke to someone at the diocese. It got back to Lisa. That was fast. Ava, what did you find? She didn't answer. Mark lowered his voice. I'm not trying to take anything from you. You've already got everything. That isn't fair. It's accurate. Isaac unlocked the shop and held the door for her. Ava stayed outside. Mark said, If you found an old document among Dad's effects, it may belong to the estate. You shouldn't be carrying it around. It's safe. Let the estate lawyer decide that. The estate lawyer works for you. He works for the family. He didn't have a folder for me. Mark was silent for a moment. What kind of document is it? He asked. Ava looked down at the rain darkening her shoes. You called before knowing that? I called because I'm concerned you'll get yourself into trouble. Then you can stop being concerned. Ava, listen to me. Hand it to Daniel. If it means nothing, you lose nothing. If it matters, we deal with it properly. We're still a family." She heard the strain beneath his calm voice. Mark didn't know what she had, but he knew enough to want it inside a room he controlled. "I'll deal with it properly," she said. "Ava, I have to go. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." She ended the call. Isaac waited inside with the lights on. Ava went to the safe, checked that the deed folder was still there, and turned the handle again after closing it. By morning, the family would know she hadn't handed anything over. The parish now had a sale date hanging over its kitchen and elder center. The town believed it owned land Thomas had bought, and the document inside the bell still belonged to a dead man on paper. Ava wrote Benjamin's name on the whiteboard above her workbench. Under it, she wrote the registry book number, the page number, and the third Friday of June. Then she circled Monday. Monday came with a delivery truck blocking the alley and a broken pipe under Isaac's sink. Ava helped shut off the water, moved 2 cabinets away from the spreading puddle, and called Benjamin from the loading dock at 8:15. He answered himself. "Lambert, it's Ava Marshall." There was a brief pause. "I heard about Thomas. I'm sorry. Thank you. My assistant said you found a deed. I said I found a document. Then she improved your message." Ava looked through the open door. Isaac was kneeling beneath the sink with a wrench in one hand. "Can you examine it today?" "Not properly. Bring it at 11 and I'll tell you whether it deserves more time." His office occupied the second floor of a narrow building near Market Square. There was no brass plaque, only his name printed in black letters beside a buzzer. Ava carried the deed in its temporary folder, inside a flat archival case Isaac had strapped shut. Benjamin met them at the door. He was 47, lean, neatly dressed, and already wearing white examination gloves. His front room held 2 metal desks and no decoration beyond a framed map of Rockingham County. "You brought company," he said. Isaac helped open the object where we found it. "What object?" "A fire bell clapper." Benjamin looked at the case, then at Ava. "That's more interesting than your message." It wasn't supposed to be interesting yet. Good instinct. He took them into the examination room. A camera stand occupied one side of a large table. Adjustable lamps stood over a sheet of gray glass. Benjamin asked Ava to describe how the parchment had been stored and removed. She explained the hollow clapper, the brass sleeve, the wax, and the blue thread. She gave him the auction receipt. She showed him the photographs taken before they touched the seal. "You documented each step?" he asked. "Most of them." "Why?" "My grandfather trained me." "I remember." Benjamin examined the parchment without unfolding it completely. He used angled light over the paper, measured the chain lines, and studied the ink through a lens. Then he photographed the recording stamp. "This could be from 1961, he said. "Could be?" "The paper is right. The ink behaves properly. The seal doesn't show obvious modern disturbance. That tells me it isn't a bad fake made last week." Isaac leaned against the far wall. "Was Thomas's signature forged?" "I haven't reached the signature. It's at the bottom. I know where signatures go." Ava almost smiled. Benjamin compared Thomas's name with signatures from 3 old auction contracts Ava had brought. He enlarged them on a monitor, placing the capital letters beside one another. "People expect a signature to match exactly," he said. "Exact matches are often the suspicious ones. Real writing changes." He pointed to the way Thomas lifted his pen between the last 2 letters of Marshall. The same break appeared in the deed and in an auction agreement signed 7 years later. "That habit is consistent," he said. "So is the pressure pattern in the first name." "Then he signed it," Ava said. "It strongly appears he did." Benjamin removed his gloves. "The recording mark is the larger problem. Why? It gives us a book and page, but the impression is weak. I'll need the county image. The registry has it. They may have an image of an image. There was a records fire in 1974. Ava remembered hearing about the fire, though Thomas had never connected it to Barrow Street. Smoke and water damaged several rooms at the registry. Some deed books were saved. Others were rebuilt from duplicate rolls, town files, and private abstracts. Benjamin tapped the stamp on the screen. "This section of the index was reconstructed," he said. "Errors happened. Names were dropped. Parcels were entered under the wrong street description. If Thomas's deed disappeared from the working index, later town records might treat the land as something it wasn't." "As municipal property," Ava said. "Possibly. The redevelopment authority has scheduled a sale. Benjamin's attention sharpened. When? The third Friday of June. Have they seen this? No. Keep it that way until I finish. Isaac moved away from the wall. Why? Because an unverified paper won't stop a public process. It may only invite someone to challenge it before we know what supports it. Ava thought of Mark's call. Can you verify it? I can try. How long? A week if the county cooperates. We don't have much time. A week is still a week. She left the original with him and signed a custody receipt. Benjamin sealed it inside a clear sleeve, then placed it in a locked cabinet while they watched. In the stairwell, Isaac said, I dislike him. You've known him for years. I've disliked him carefully. He believes it's real. He believes the paper is old. That's how he speaks when he doesn't want to be sued. Ava stopped at the landing. He told us not to notify the authority. He told us to wait until he has support. Meanwhile, they keep preparing a sale. Then we learn what they think they're selling. They went directly to the authority office. The receptionist gave Ava a public information packet and explained that no final sale terms had been approved. The packet described the Barrow Street parcel as underused municipal land, suitable for mixed commercial development. It included an aerial photograph with the engine house and Parish Hall outlined together in red. Ava read the parcel dimensions. They matched Thomas's deed. The proposed access route ran through the Parish kitchen entrance. Kevin was waiting when they returned to the hall. He read the packet at the same folding table where Abigail had told them about Thomas. They call this underused, he said. We serve meals 4 days a week. They're counting the building, not the people, Ava said. Kevin turned to the last page. Public comments due at the end of May. That's before the sale hearing. We can object based on parish use. You should. Aren't you objecting based on ownership? When we can prove it. Kevin studied her. And if you prove it belongs to Thomas's estate. Ava folded the aerial photograph along its existing crease. Then my family decides what to do. That doesn't comfort me. It doesn't comfort me either. Kevin stood and went to the kitchen. He came back with a key. This opens the engine house side door. Ava stared at it. You have a key? The parish has used the basement shutoff for years. The city knows. At least, the maintenance office knows. He placed it on the table. If someone's going to put a price on the property, they should see what they're talking about. Ava looked at Isaac. He said, We'll need flashlights. They entered the engine house that afternoon. The side door opened into a narrow stairwell that smelled of damp brick. Dust coated the handrail. At the bottom, their flashlight beams found old pipes, a rusted boiler, and stacks of parish tables stored beneath canvas sheets. The main floor was better than Ava expected. The wide truck bays remained open inside, though the exterior doors had been boarded. Water had stained one rear wall. Several ceiling panels hung loose. The brick arches were sound. Isaac pressed a pocket knife into a windowsill. Rot on the surface, he said. Good wood underneath. You sound disappointed. I enjoy being right about disasters. They found the bell mount in the front bay. A cable channel ran up the wall toward the roof bracket. On a shelf nearby sat a wooden box of old electrical parts and a coil of cracked rope. Ava imagined Thomas there at 18, pulling on that rope as a volunteer firefighter. She could almost hear the bell as it had been, before someone hollowed the clapper and buried a deed inside. Near the rear stairs, Isaac stopped beside the foundation wall. What? Ava asked. He aimed his light at the stonework. Repairs. Recent? No. Different mortar, though. Ava crouched to look. 3 stones near the floor had been reset more neatly than the others. One carried a shallow scrape across its face. Thomas did church repairs, she said. Thomas did repairs everywhere. Isaac moved the light away. We came to inspect the building. She took a photograph before following him upstairs. Benjamin called 6 days later. Come to my office, he said. Did you find the record? Come to my office? Isaac drove too slowly for Ava's patience and too quickly for the wet roads. Neither of them spoke. Benjamin had the deed beneath glass when they arrived. Beside it lay a printed image from restored registry microfilm. The image was gray and scratched. The text remained readable. Ava went straight to the signature, Thomas Marshall. The recording date, book number, page number, legal description, and purchase amount matched the parchment from the clapper. Benjamin placed his finger beside a handwritten notation in the margin. This code means the original book page was damaged in the fire. The microfilm copy was recovered later from an off-site roll. When the index was rebuilt, this entry was assigned to a shortened version of the street name and never linked to the modern parcel number. So, the town missed it, Isaac said. For decades. Ava looked at Benjamin. Is the deed genuine? In my professional opinion, yes. The original is consistent with the date. The recording stamp matches county practice. Thomas's signature is authentic. The restored microfilm proves the deed was recorded 13 years before the fire. The room went very quiet. What does that give us? Ava asked. Evidence that Thomas owned the parcel in 1961. Owned, past tense. Benjamin nodded. A deed proves a transfer to him. We still need to search for any later transfer out. And if there isn't one, then the land remained his. Does the auction receipt transfer it to me? No. The answer came without softness. Benjamin folded his hands on the desk. Buying the container that held a deed doesn't transfer real estate. If Thomas still owned the parcel when he died, it became part of whatever legal arrangement governs property not listed elsewhere. The operating estate, perhaps. Perhaps not. I haven't reviewed his probate file. Ava looked at Thomas's signature again. She had proof that the town was wrong, but nothing yet proving she was right. Benjamin continued. There's another practical issue. Before anyone decides what to fight over, you need to know what the land is worth, Isaac said. The parish uses it. Use and market value are different questions. They shouldn't be. They often are. Benjamin gave Ava the name of a commercial appraiser he trusted. Haley Cabrera met them at the engine house 3 days later. She was 39, wore work boots with gray trousers, and carried a laser measure in a battered orange case. She spent 2 hours walking every boundary she could access. Kevin opened the parish hall. Isaac showed her the drainage problem behind the engine house. Ava answered questions about the deed and said nothing about her family. Haley measured the frontage twice. Redevelopment makes this unusual, she said. The building condition matters less than the location. Because it's near the waterfront, Ava said. Because it connects Barrow Street access with a block developers already want. She pointed toward newer buildings visible beyond the warehouse roofs. A clean commercial parcel here is rare. A parcel with this access is rarer. Kevin stood on the parish steps. It isn't clean, we're on it. I mean clean title, Haley said. And right now, it doesn't have that. Her full report arrived the following Friday. Ava opened it at Isaac's workbench. Haley had valued the land under 2 conditions. With unresolved title and continued parish occupancy, it was difficult to finance and nearly impossible to sell responsibly. With Thomas's ownership confirmed, no later transfer, and ordinary commercial access, the market value was close to $2,600,000. Ava read the number aloud in words because seeing it printed wasn't enough. Isaac sat down. Kevin, who had come over for the report, didn't. That's why the authority wants it, he said. Ava turned to the page describing highest commercial use. It showed a possible retail building where the meal service kitchen stood. The deed was no longer only a forgotten paper that could correct a town record. It was proof tied to enough money to change the business her family controlled, enough land to displace the parish, and enough uncertainty to make everyone believe they deserved a hand on it. Her phone lit up on the bench. Jason had sent one line. We need to talk before you make a very expensive mistake. Ava didn't answer until the next morning. Where? Jason replied almost at once. Warehouse, 10. She arrived 5 minutes early and found the front office locked. Through the glass, she could see Thomas's coat was gone. The frosted doors now carried a new vinyl logo, a blue outline of a gavel beside the words, Marshall Digital Auctions. Jason opened the door from inside. You changed the sign, she said. It needed updating. Where's Granddad's coat? Dad took it home. Ava followed him into the auction room. Most of the old display cabinets had been moved out. White photography screens stood where Thomas used to arrange preview tables. 2 employees were filming a row of ceramic bowls beneath bright lamps. Jason led Ava upstairs to the office above the loading bay. He'd turned it into a conference room with a television mounted on one wall. A rendering filled the screen. It showed the Barrow Street block with the engine house replaced by a glass-fronted building. The parish hall was gone too. Ava stopped near the door. How long have you had that? This version came last week. This version? Jason closed the door. Sit down, I'm fine. He picked up a remote and changed the screen. The next image showed a map of the waterfront redevelopment area. Bayline Development has been assembling sites for over a year, he said. They want street access. The authority parcel gives it to them. The parcel isn't the authority's. I know that now. Did you know before Granddad died? No. I thought the town owned it. Everyone did. Then why were you involved? Because Bayline needs a local auction and asset firm. Equipment sales, building clearance, tenant transitions. That's work we can handle. Ava looked at the rendering again. Someone had added benches and young trees where the parish kitchen stood. And selling the land? If private ownership is confirmed, they'd rather negotiate directly. With me. With whoever owns it. That isn't me yet. Jason put the remote down. Which is why we need to be sensible. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a proposal bearing the Marshall & Sons logo. The company would represent the property owner in negotiations, coordinate the title work, and arrange a private sale. Its fee would be 10% of the sale price. Ava read the figure twice. You want $260,000 if it sells at Haley's number. How do you know Haley's number? Jason looked annoyed that she'd asked. The parish called the diocese. The diocese called Dad because Thomas's name was on the document. People talk. Haley's report was private. Kevin gave them the general value. Ava made a note to speak with Kevin. Jason tapped the proposal. 10% covers more than a sale commission. We deal with the authority, Bayline, the title issues, and the parish occupancy. What does dealing with the parish occupancy mean? Negotiating a move. They don't want to move. They haven't been offered anything. They have a kitchen, an elder center, and people who can walk there. They have an aging building on land worth millions. Thomas knew that land would become valuable. Thomas knew it might. He also lived like every dollar was a moral test. Ava closed the folder. Granddad wouldn't have sold it out from under them. Granddad didn't tell anyone he owned it. You don't get to call that responsible. He kept his promise. He hid a deed in a bell. Jason walked to the window. From there, they could see the engine house roof beyond the warehouse. You think I'm trying to steal something from you? He said. I'm trying to keep this business alive. Ava waited. He turned back. Do you know what the warehouse costs every month? Insurance, heat, payroll, software, vehicle maintenance. Granddad kept prices low for old clients and carried inventory that hadn't moved in 15 years. Some of it was on consignment, which is worse. We were paying to store other people's indecision. You sold most of it at the liquidation, at discounts. Half the proceeds went straight to obligations. What obligations? The operating credit line, roof repairs, taxes, the new platform. Ava looked around the room. The mounted television, new desks, camera equipment, and vinyl signs no longer looked like a clean break from Thomas. They looked like bills. How much did you borrow for the platform? That's company information. You're asking me to give the company control of land worth nearly $3 million. I'm asking you to let professionals manage a transaction. You're an operations manager, and you're living behind a furniture shop. He regretted it as soon as he said it. His face showed that much. He didn't apologize. Ava put the proposal back on the table. Did Bayline promise you something? They promised Marshall & Sons the local contract if the development goes forward. How much? It depends on the project. And if the land stays with the parish, there is no project. There it was. Not a sudden secret. Only the finished shape of what Jason had been saying for years. Anything that sat still was wasted. Anything that took patience was dead inventory. The bell, the old records, the engine house, even the hall full of people eating lunch. All of it became useful only when converted into a transaction he could measure. Was this the buyer Granddad refused to discuss? Ava asked. Jason looked away. Bayline approached us last fall. About the parcel? About the whole block. We didn't know Thomas owned this piece. They wanted him to support redevelopment at the authority meetings. And he refused. He wouldn't even look at the numbers. What did you say to him? What difference does that make? It made enough difference for Dad to remember the argument. Jason sat down. I told Thomas the business couldn't survive another decade of him protecting every old arrangement in Portsmouth. He said the business didn't deserve to survive if it forgot who had kept it standing. Ava could hear Thomas saying it. She could also see why Jason had heard only rejection. Did he mention the parish? No. The bell? No. Me? Jason pressed his thumb against the edge of the folder. He said, You understood custody. What did that mean? I thought it meant you agreed with him about never selling anything. And you didn't tell me? He said a lot of things when he was angry. That isn't an answer. No, I didn't tell you. Ava walked toward the door. Jason stood. Wait, she turned. The company needs this, he said. Dad's house is tied to the business guarantee. That stopped her. What guarantee? The bank increased the credit line last year. Dad secured part of it. Does Lisa know? Of course she knows. That explained more than Jason intended. Mark's concern wasn't only about family property. If Marshall and Sons failed, his house could be pulled into the loss. Lisa's calm insistence on procedure had been protecting her home and her son's position at the same time. Jason needed cash, a development contract, and proof that his 4 years of changes hadn't weakened the company Thomas built. None of them had known about the deed before Ava found it. They hadn't cut her out to steal this particular parcel. They had cut her out because they believed her way of valuing things threatened the future they wanted. Now the one thing excluded from their plans might be valuable enough to save those plans. Jason softened his voice. We can structure it fairly. You'd receive a share. Dad and Lisa would receive a share. I'd take less if that's what's bothering you. You're offering me a share of something you don't own. Neither do you. Then why is your company already promising it to Bayline? His jaw tightened. I haven't promised the land. You promised access. I promised a conversation. With whose permission? You're making this personal. It's my family. It became personal before anyone invited me into the room. She opened the door. Jason said, the authority sale is moving forward. If they sell first, every dollar gets spent on lawyers. Bayline can help prevent that. By buying the property. By resolving the problem. Ava looked back at the rendering. The parish isn't a problem. She left the proposal on the table. Mark called while she was halfway down the stairs. She let it ring. Lisa called 3 minutes later. Ava let that ring too. When she returned to Isaac's shop, Kevin was waiting beside the workbench. I owe you an apology, he said. You told the diocese the appraisal. I told the finance office because the hall may be sitting on land worth more than the parish's entire annual budget. I asked them for help. Someone there called Mark. Ava put down her coat. Did they ask whether the parish would sell? Kevin looked embarrassed. They asked whether a relocation payment could fund a new center somewhere cheaper. And I said the people we serve live here. Isaac came in from the annex carrying a section of copper pipe. Jason made an offer, Ava told them. To buy? Kevin asked. To handle the sale for 10%. Isaac set the pipe down with care. That sounds like Jason. He already has a developer waiting. Kevin pulled out a chair. Bayline? Ava looked at him. They attended the parish planning meeting last winter, he said. They talked about accessible community space in the new building. They didn't mention that our current space would be removed first. Isaac sat across from Ava. What did you tell Jason? No. Good. Kevin didn't look relieved. Saying no doesn't settle ownership. I know. And if the land falls into the estate, Mark can say yes. I know that too. A knock came at the shop door. A courier stood outside holding a large envelope. Ava signed for it and carried it to the bench. The return address belonged to Daniel Pierce. Inside was a copy of a probate objection filed that morning. Lisa challenged Ava's possession of the deed, claimed the parcel was an undisclosed estate asset owed to all 4 family heirs, and requested that Ava surrender every original document connected to it. The filing also questioned whether Ava had the experience and financial ability to manage property of that value. Isaac read that paragraph twice. Kevin took off his glasses. Ava turned to the final page. Mark had signed beneath Lisa's name. Jason's statement was attached behind it, describing the land as essential to preserving the family business and resolving the municipal sale. His motive was no longer behind concern, modernization, or an offer across a conference table. It was filed in plain language. They believed the land should save what they had chosen, even if saving it required taking the choice away from Ava. Ava folded the filing along its original crease and slid it back into the envelope. Benjamin needs to see this, she said. Isaac looked at the clock. His office closed 10 minutes ago. He has a mobile number. He gave that to Thomas for emergencies. The city plans to sell land it doesn't own. My family wants the deed. I'm willing to test the definition. Benjamin answered on the 4th ring. He listened without interrupting while Ava read the requested orders. When she finished, he asked where the original deed was. In your cabinet. Good, it stays there. They're demanding I surrender it. To the court, perhaps, not to the family attorney. I'll prepare a custody statement and verified copies. Lisa says I can't manage the property. Lisa is trying to move the argument away from the document. Will it work? It will create work. That was the kind of answer Benjamin gave when reassurance would have been easier and less useful. Ava asked, "What do we need?" Evidence Thomas retained ownership until his death. Tax records would help. Insurance records. Any reference to the parcel in his private papers. The family has his papers. Not all of them. Ava looked at the hollow clapper. "No," she said. "Apparently not all of them." Benjamin told her not to search Thomas's former office or house without permission. Anything found after unauthorized entry would hand Lisa a cleaner argument than the one she had. "What about the engine house?" Ava asked. "Do you have lawful access?" "The parish has maintained the basement for years. That wasn't my question." Kevin spoke from across the bench. "I can authorize access for parish maintenance." Benjamin paused. "Document who enters, when, and why. Photograph before moving anything. If you find more paper, don't unfold it on a workbench," Isaac said, loudly enough for the phone. "We own tables. Mr. Burton, your tables have glue on them." Benjamin ended the call after arranging to meet the next morning. Kevin looked at Ava. "What are we expecting to find?" "I don't know." Isaac picked up the old parish file. "Then we asked the person who remembers where Thomas spent his time." Abigail received them the following afternoon in the parish organ loft. She still played twice a month, though she complained that the newer hymns had been written by people afraid of melody. Ava showed her photographs of the engine house basement. Abigail adjusted her glasses and moved through them one by one. "That wall was always damp," she said. "Thomas repaired it during the winter the boiler failed." "Which winter?" 1982, perhaps." "No, later. Kevin's predecessor was here, and he didn't arrive until 1985. Did Thomas replace foundation stones? He did whatever kept him downstairs until everyone else went home." Isaac leaned against the organ rail. Was he hiding something? Thomas was always hiding something, usually the fact that he'd paid a bill. Ava showed her the 3 reset stones. Abigail enlarged the picture. "That mark," she said. "The scrape?" He carried a flat pry bar with a nick in one edge. It left twin lines when it slipped. I watched him damage the sacristy floor with it. Did he ever mention the wall? No. He came up from the basement one evening with mortar on both knees. When I asked what he'd fixed, he said, "Something that ought to stay put." Isaac looked at Ava. Abigail lowered the phone. "You found the first thing in the bell. Thomas knew that would send you to the engine house. He couldn't know I'd buy it, no?" Ava thought of William dropping the hammer before anyone could raise the bid. She pushed that thought aside. "We inspect the stones first." By then, June had brought warm rain and long evenings to Portsmouth. The public sale remained scheduled for the 3rd Friday. The probate objection had been set for review during the authorities' evidence hearing that same week, because the city needed to know whether any private title claim could stop its sale. They had days, not months. Kevin signed an access letter. Abigail signed a statement explaining Thomas's old repair. Benjamin arranged a camera on a tripod in the basement and recorded the wall before anyone touched it. Isaac ran his fingers over the mortar. "It was mixed with too much sand," he said. "Thomas did that when he wanted a repair opened again." "You never corrected him?" Ava asked. "He didn't enjoy correction. You corrected him constantly." "I didn't enjoy safety." They started with the stone nearest the floor. Isaac cut around it using hand tools, while Ava cleared loose mortar with a brush. Kevin carried debris away in a bucket. Abigail sat on a folding chair near the stairs and objected whenever anyone blocked her view. The first stone came loose after 40 minutes. Behind it was packed dirt. The second stone revealed more dirt and an old mouse nest. Kevin crouched beside the opening. Could the repair have been exactly what it looked like? "No," Abigail said. Isaac wiped sweat from his forehead. Encouragement from a seated position is a spiritual gift. The third stone was wider and set deeper. 2 shallow lines crossed its face, matching the nick in Thomas's old bar. Ava worked the right edge while Isaac held the weight. The stone shifted. "Easy," he said. "I have it. You don't have 80 pounds of granite." Kevin moved in beside them. Together they lowered it onto wooden blocks. A rectangle of dark metal sat behind it. Nobody reached in. Benjamin moved the camera closer. The box was about the size of a large ledger, wrapped in oilcloth, and fitted inside a dry cavity lined with slate. Isaac tested the surrounding stone before Ava slid the box forward. She set it on a clean plywood panel. The brass latch opened without a key. Inside lay a leather ledger, a long envelope, and a folded document held between two pieces of stiff board. A note rested on top in Thomas's handwriting. Ava. She stopped breathing for a second. Isaac saw her hand shake and placed a chair behind her without comment. Benjamin photographed the box, then each object in place. Only after he finished did he allow Ava to lift the note. The first line was simple. If you're reading this, the bell did its work. Ava sat on the folding chair. Thomas wrote that St. Brendan's had given him a bed when he had none, meals when he couldn't pay, and work that let him stand beside adults without being treated like a burden. He'd bought the land because the parish would never have been able to compete with commercial buyers. He'd hidden the deed after the registry fire, when a clerk warned him reconstructed records might not protect the parcel. He had chosen the clapper because a bell was meant to bring someone who knew how to listen. Ava read that line twice, then continued. He didn't explain why he had left her outside the operating estate. He said only that the land could never be protected by someone who saw it as spare capital. He trusted Ava to find the facts before deciding what they required. The letter ended with directions to read the ledger and the legal paper beneath it. Benjamin opened the ledger. Every page listed a tax year, an amount, a payment date, and a receipt number. The first entry began in 1961. The last was dated weeks before Thomas died in January of 2026. 65 years, Kevin said. Benjamin turned pages carefully. Several included original town receipts fixed to the paper with archival corners. Later entries listed electronic confirmation numbers. He kept a separate tax account, Ava said, and paid it personally, Benjamin replied. Not through Marshall & Sons. Can you verify the recent ones? Yes. Older receipts can be checked against municipal rolls and bank archives where they survive. The final document carried a notary seal and 2 witness signatures. Its heading read, Supplemental Instruction. Regarding Barrow Street property, Thomas identified the parcel by the same book, page, and legal description shown on the deed. He stated that it had never been transferred, pledged, or contributed to the auction business. Upon his death, his executor was directed to convey it solely to Ava Marshall, subject to the parish's continued right of use. Ava read the paragraph again. Is this valid? Isaac asked. Benjamin studied the signatures and seal. It has the form of a testamentary supplement. 2 witnesses, proper language, clear identification of the property. I need to verify the notary commission and compare the witness signatures. That wasn't the question. The probate court decides validity. My opinion does not become law because you're in a basement. Ava looked at the date. Thomas had signed it the previous December. Below the main instruction, he'd added 1 sentence by hand. William has the matching direction concerning the bell. William Elliott? Kevin asked. Ava took out her phone. William answered from an auction preview in Exeter. When she read Thomas's sentence, he went quiet. You found the wall box, he said. You knew about it? I knew there was something after the bell. I didn't know where. You knew the deed was inside the clapper? No. Thomas never told me what was inside, but you knew I was supposed to buy it. William let out a slow breath. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because his instructions said not to. You had to notice something was wrong and follow it yourself. Ava looked toward Isaac. The $5 bid no longer felt accidental. Bring the instruction to Benjamin's office, she said. William arrived before supper, carrying a sealed envelope from his bank box. Thomas's signature ran across the flap. Benjamin recorded the opening. Inside was a dated instruction identifying lot 214 by its casting number. William was to include the bell in the public sale, accept Ava's first bid, and close the lot before any competing bid could be recognized. If Ava didn't attend or didn't bid, William was to withdraw the lot and contact Benjamin. A $5 bill was clipped to the note. William placed both hands flat on the examination table. Thomas gave me the envelope in December, he said. He told me I'd know when to use it. Ava looked at him. You gave me the bell. I sold it to you. For the exact amount he left. William nodded. He said you might arrive with almost nothing after the family finished dividing things. The room stayed quiet. Benjamin spent the next 2 days verifying the new material. The notary had been properly commissioned. Both witnesses confirmed their signatures. Municipal records matched the recent tax entries. Older payment rolls matched the ledger wherever records remained. No later deed, lien, mortgage, or transfer from Thomas appeared in the county chain. On Wednesday evening, Benjamin arranged the original deed, the restored microfilm image, the ledger, Thomas's letter, the supplemental instruction, and William's sealed direction across his locked conference table. "This is the chain," he said. "The city's claim rests on an indexing mistake. The family's claim rests on treating the parcel as an ordinary omitted asset. These documents answer both." "Does Ava own it?" Isaac asked. Benjamin chose his words. "She has the documented right to receive it and the strongest supported claim before the court. Thomas retained title, paid every tax, excluded it from the business, and left a witness direction naming her alone." Ava looked through the glass wall at the brass clapper resting in an evidence tray. For months, everyone else had decided what she could manage, what she deserved, and which parts of Thomas's life she was allowed to touch. Now she held a direction written before any of them knew the land existed. She placed her hand on the closed ledger. "Make copies for the hearing," she said. "The originals stay here." Benjamin made 3 certified sets and 1 working set for Ava. Each page carried an exhibit number in the lower corner. He put the originals into separate protective sleeves and returned them to his locked cabinet. "Only bring originals if the board requires them," he said. "They'll require them," Ava replied. "Then I'll bring them. You don't have to sit through the whole hearing. I'm the person who authenticated the deed. I do have to sit through it." Isaac lifted one of the binders. "You enjoy correcting people in public. I enjoy complete records." William took his copy of Thomas's instruction and placed it inside his jacket. "I should have told Ava sooner," he said. Benjamin closed the cabinet. "Then Lisa would argue you led her to the wall box." "She may argue that anyway. She can argue the moon is inventory. We answer what she can support." Ava carried the working binder back to the annex. She didn't take it inside. At Benjamin's suggestion, she placed it in Isaac's office safe with the parish file. The precaution felt excessive until 2:17 the next morning. Glass broke in the main shop. Ava woke beneath the old quilt and heard a second crash, followed by the scrape of something heavy against the loading door. She sat up, unsure for 1 second whether the sound belonged to a dream. Then the exterior handle moved. She reached for her phone and called emergency services. While she gave the address, a flashlight swept through the gap beneath the annex door. Ava backed toward the boarded window. The person in the main shop opened drawers quickly. Metal tools struck the concrete. A cabinet door slammed. The flashlight disappeared, then returned near Isaac's office. Ava heard the office lock crack. She stayed where she was. Her bare feet had gone cold against the floor. A minute later, the rear loading door banged open. Footsteps crossed the wet yard. An engine started beyond the alley and faded toward Barrow Street. The police arrived before Isaac did. Nothing obvious had been stolen. 2 filing cabinets had been opened. Isaac's office safe showed fresh marks around the handle, but it hadn't opened. The bell had been knocked from its wooden blocks and left on its side. Ava crouched beside it after the officers finished taking photographs. The bronze body had gained another scrape. The hollow clapper wasn't there. It remained locked at Benjamin's office with the original papers. Isaac stood in the broken doorway, wearing yesterday's trousers and a coat over his undershirt. "Did you see anyone?" "No." "Did they come into the annex?" "No." He looked at the damaged office lock. They knew where to search. They might have been looking for tools. They opened paper drawers and left a tray of silver fittings. The officers couldn't tell them more. There were no clear prints on the wet door. A neighboring camera had captured a dark vehicle without a readable plate. Isaac wanted Ava to sleep at his sister's house. "I'm not leaving," she said. "This isn't a question of courage. I know, then don't make it one." She looked at the bell on the floor. "Someone came here because they thought the deed was here. If I leave, they still won't find it. If you stay, they may find you." Ava packed a bag. She spent the rest of the night on Isaac's sister's sofa in Dover, watching rain move down a window that faced an unfamiliar yard. At 6, Benjamin called. "The authority advanced the evidence hearing," he said. "To when?" "Tomorrow morning. It was supposed to be Thursday. Now it's Wednesday. They intend to resolve title objections before Friday's scheduled sale." "Who requested that?" "Marshall and Sons filed an urgency letter on behalf of an interested developer." Ava sat up. "Jason. His name is on it. Can they move it with 1 day's notice? They did. The authorities' public packet arrived by email an hour later. Jason's letter said Bayline's development timetable would be harmed by delay. It asked the board either to reject Ava's private title claim or recognize the estate as the proper negotiating party. Attached was the proposal she had left on the conference table. It now included Mark's signature as proposed estate representative. Lisa had added a statement saying the family supported relocation assistance for St. Brendan's, provided the parish vacated on a commercially reasonable schedule. Jason offered Marshall and Sons as the sale manager. They had moved from asking Ava to surrender the deed to publicly arranging what would happen after they took control of it. Ava forwarded the packet to Benjamin. Then she called Mark. He answered immediately. "Are you all right?" Jason said Isaac's shop was broken into. "How did Jason know?" Kevin called Lisa. "Did you request the hearing be moved? We can't let the city sell on Friday. That's not an answer." "Yes, we asked for a decision. Did you know I had new evidence?" "What evidence?" She said nothing. Mark's voice tightened. "Ava, if you have something relevant, send it to Daniel. I'll bring it to the hearing. This isn't an auction trick. Surprising people won't help you. It helped Granddad." "Ava, did Jason have anything to do with the break-in?" "No." You answered quickly. "Because that's a terrible thing to ask." She listened to the offense in his voice. Mark believed what he said. Whether Jason knew more was another question. "Tomorrow," she said. The authority met in a municipal room with gray carpet, a low ceiling, and rows of plastic chairs. Every seat was filled before 9. Parish volunteers occupied the left side. Bayline representatives sat near the front without speaking to anyone. Dealers and employees from Marshall and Sons gathered behind Mark, Lisa, and Jason. The family had arrived together and placed their document boxes across one table. Ava entered with Isaac. Abigail came behind them carrying the old parish folder. Kevin wore his collar and held the authority packet beneath one arm. Benjamin brought a hard case containing the originals. Haley carried her appraisal report. William sat at the end of their table with Thomas's envelope in front of him. Jason watched each of them arrive. His confidence slipped when he saw Benjamin's case, then returned. He leaned toward Daniel and whispered something. The board chair called the meeting to order. She explained that the authority couldn't sell land under a supported private claim. The purpose of the hearing was to decide whether enough evidence existed to withdraw the parcel from Friday's sale. Any final probate distribution could be addressed by the court, but the authority first needed to know whether Portsmouth owned what it planned to sell. Daniel stood for the family. He began with sympathy. "This has been a painful period for the Marshall family," he said. Thomas Marshall was respected throughout Portsmouth, and no one wishes to diminish his granddaughter's grief. Ava kept her hands beneath the table. Daniel described the Bell deed as an undocumented paper discovered under circumstances controlled by Ava and Isaac. He didn't call it false. He called it incomplete. Then he argued that if Thomas owned the parcel, it belonged to the estate. Mark, Lisa, and Jason had already inherited the business and related assets. Ava had purchased a Bell, not land. Lisa spoke next. She wore a navy suit and read from a prepared page. "We have repeatedly asked Ava to place the original document with the estate attorney. She refused. We are concerned that her personal attachment to Thomas has affected her judgment. This property requires experienced management, legal coordination, and financial resources she does not possess." Isaac shifted beside Ava. She touched his sleeve once. "Not yet." Lisa continued. "Our intention is not to exclude Ava. We have offered her participation in any future proceeds. We also support fair assistance for the parish." Kevin looked down at the word assistance in the packet. Mark didn't use notes. "My daughter worked with my father for years," he said. "I respect what she learned, but Thomas built Marshall and Sons for the whole family. If this parcel was his, then it should preserve what he spent his life building." His voice shook on the last sentence. He wasn't acting. That made the choice clearer, not kinder. The chair asked whether Mark believed Thomas intended the parcel for the company. Mark hesitated. "I believe he would want the business protected. That wasn't my question." "No," he said. "I don't have a document saying that." Jason did. He placed the Bayline proposal on the display table and spoke without waiting for Daniel. This site can secure the future of a local company, bring tax revenue to Portsmouth, and allow the parish to relocate into a better facility. Delaying because of one unrecorded family claim puts all of that at risk. The deed was recorded, Benjamin said from his chair. Daniel turned. You'll have your opportunity. Jason kept going. Marshall & Sons has the staff and buyer relationship to resolve this now. Ava has no company, no capital, and no experience managing commercial land. She has a workshop room Isaac lets her sleep in. A low sound moved through the parish seats. Jason glanced toward the board, aware he'd gone too far but unwilling to retreat. She wants to keep everything exactly as Thomas left it, he said. That isn't stewardship. It's refusing reality. The board chair asked him one question. If the estate receives control, will you proceed with the Bayline sale? Jason looked at Mark. Mark looked at Lisa. Lisa gave a small nod. Yes, Jason said. We will. And the parish hall will negotiate a vacancy date. Abigail closed her eyes. The chair turned to Ava's table. Ms. Marshall, your family has challenged the deed, your standing, and your ability to act. They have also committed to a sale if we recognize estate control. Do you wish to respond? Ava looked once at Mark, Lisa, and Jason. All three believed they had placed her in the position they understood best. She could defend her feelings, or she could surrender to their plan. She opened the binder. Yes, she said, I do. She didn't begin with the letter. She asked Benjamin to place the original deed beneath the document camera. Its faded lines appeared on the wall screen. This parchment is consistent with 1961, he said. The signature is Thomas Marshall's. The recording stamp is genuine. Daniel stood. You're offering an opinion. Benjamin placed the restored county image beside it. I'm offering two matching records. This is the registry microfilm recovered after the 1974 fire. The book number, page, date, legal description, purchase amount, and signature match. The chair leaned toward the screen. So, the deed was recorded 13 years before the fire. Why doesn't it appear under the current parcel? The reconstructed index shortened the street description and failed to connect it to the modern parcel number. Lisa whispered to Daniel. Jason stopped writing. Ava asked Abigail to come forward. Abigail carried the parish's carbon copy to the display table. I typed this in 1961, she said. I was 19. Thomas had just bought the engine house parcel. I heard him promise the pastor that St. Brendan's could use the land without charge. Daniel asked, Were you present when the deed was signed? No. Then you can't testify to the purchase. I can testify that Thomas came into the parish hall with the city clerk, showed us the deed, and made the promise. I can also testify that you're asking the same question twice. A few people laughed. The chair called for quiet, though she was hiding a smile. Kevin described the elder center, the meal service, and the parish's reliance on the shared parcel. Haley then explained her appraisal. The land approaches $2,600,000 only if title is clear and commercial access is available, she said. Removing the parish increases development options. It also removes the use Thomas protected. Jason stood. Market value isn't evidence of ownership. No, Ava said. It explains the pressure that began after the deed surfaced. She opened the ledger. Benjamin verified the tax entries first. Then Ava placed the pages beneath the camera, year after year of payments in Thomas's hand. The city treated the parcel as municipal, she said. Thomas didn't. He paid the property taxes personally from 1961 until January of this year. The chair asked the authorities' counsel whether the city had evidence of a later transfer. The counsel shook his head. None has been located. Mark stared at the ledger. His face had lost its color. Dad paid those? He asked. Ava looked at him. Every year. Daniel rose again. That still makes the parcel an estate asset. Yes, Ava said. That's why Thomas left the next instruction. Benjamin displayed the notarized supplement. He explained the two witness confirmations, the valid notary commission, and the absence of any later document contradicting it. The final paragraph filled the screen. Upon Thomas's death, the parcel was to be conveyed solely to Ava, subject to St. Brendan's continued use. Lisa stood before Daniel could stop her. We've never seen that. Neither had I, Ava said. Where was it? In the engine house foundation. Jason laughed once without humor. Another thing you happened to find? Isaac came forward with the dated photographs, Kevin's access letter, Abigail's statement, and Benjamin's continuous recording of the search. I removed the stone, Isaac said. Ava didn't touch the box until the camera was running. And how did she know where to look? Lisa asked. Abigail answered from her chair. Because I told her where Thomas used to repair the wall. William placed his sealed instruction beneath the camera. This is how Thomas made sure she found the first document, he said. The $5 bill was still clipped to the page. William read Thomas's direction aloud. Lot 214 was to be offered publicly. Ava's first bid was to be accepted. No competing bid was to delay the sale. Jason looked from the note to William. You fixed the auction. I followed the owner's instruction. You gave her property worth millions for $5. No, William said. The auctioneer gave her a $5 fire bell nobody wanted. Its hollow clapper held a parish deed. Thomas trusted her to do the rest. The words settled over the room. Ava placed Thomas's letter on the table last. She didn't read all of it. She read the lines about St. Brendan's giving him a bed, meals, and work. Then she read his reason for choosing her. The land could not be protected by someone who saw it as spare capital. Ava was to learn the facts before deciding what they required. Mark lowered his head. Lisa remained standing. A private letter doesn't make her capable. Ava closed the binder. No, she said. Keeping the deed safe did. Authenticating it did. Finding the tax record did. Listening to Abigail and dealing with the authority did. I didn't ask you to believe I was capable. I brought proof. Jason turned toward the board. Bayline has relied on this process. You can't withdraw the parcel the day before the sale. The chair looked at him. The authority can't sell property Portsmouth does not own. She called a brief recess. Nobody left. Mark approached Ava's table. I didn't know, he said. You knew enough to sign the proposal. I was trying to save the business. I know. Dad made me responsible for it. He made you responsible for what he gave you, not for what he gave me. Mark looked at Thomas's letter. What happens to the house if the company fails? I don't know. He waited for something more. Ava didn't offer it. When the board returned, the chair read the decision into the record. The Barrow Street parcel was withdrawn from Friday's sale. The authority recognized the recorded private title, Thomas's uninterrupted ownership, and Ava's documented right as his named successor. The city would correct its parcel index. Any remaining probate filing would be handled through the court, but Portsmouth no longer claimed the land. Daniel leaned toward Lisa and spoke quietly. A moment later, he announced that the family would withdraw its request for possession of the deed. The probate conveyance was recorded 2 weeks later. Jason left before the meeting ended. Mark stayed until the room had nearly emptied. I'm sorry, he said. Ava packed the ledger into Benjamin's case. I believe you're sorry. Can we fix this? Not today. He nodded, accepting less than forgiveness, because less was what existed. What will you do with the land? Keep the promise. Ava met Haley and a Bayline representative at the engine house the following week. Bayline increased its proposed price and offered to build a smaller elder center elsewhere. Ava listened. Then she turned the written offer face down. The land isn't for sale, Haley asked. Are you certain? Yes. Kevin was waiting in the parish hall with a lawyer from the diocese. Ava signed a permanent lease securing the hall, kitchen, access ramp, and elder center for a token annual payment. The lease carried Thomas Marshall's name and couldn't be ended by a future sale. Abigail inspected the signature page. He would complain about the lawyer's fee, she said. He can complain quietly, Ava replied. Isaac took over the engine house repair list. Ava insisted on seeing the estimates before he hired anyone. They argued over drainage, window frames, and whether the old boiler deserved another winter. It didn't. They repaired the roof first. Parish volunteers cleared the bays. Marjorie Penn brought sandwiches and sat safely on one of her restored chairs while giving unwanted advice. Haley helped Ava find a small preservation grant. Kevin traded use of the parish van for repairs to 6 dining tables. Marshall and Sons survived the summer by selling a warehouse and reducing its inventory. Ava didn't rescue it with the parcel. She also didn't interfere. Jason remained operations manager, though he stopped calling the old stock dead inventory when Mark was near enough to hear. In September, Mark came to the engine house carrying Thomas's coat. I thought this belonged here, he said. Ava took it from him. Thank you. He looked around the restored front bay. Could I come to the opening? You can come. Lisa didn't. Jason stood at the back for 10 minutes, then left before the bell rang. Ava watched him go and returned to the people who had stayed. The old clapper couldn't be made sound again without destroying the hollow Thomas had created. Ava kept it in a glass case beside the deed's certified copy. A foundry recast a new clapper to the original weight and tone. On dedication morning, Isaac helped hang the bell above the engine house doors. The new workshop sign below it read, Marshall and Burton Restoration. Ava had wanted Isaac's name first. He refused. "You found the building," he said. "You kept me in it. That sounds like shared billing." The parish lease was secure. The workshop had heat, dry floors, and 3 months of repair orders clipped above Ava's bench. Her bed no longer stood in the annex. She had made a small apartment in the former watchroom, with Thomas's coat hanging beside the door. If stories about young people rebuilding a life after family betrayal matter to you, subscribe and return for the next inheritance story. After the dedication guests carried their cups and folding chairs back toward the parish hall, Ava remained beneath the bell with Isaac and Abigail. "Go on," Abigail said. "Some of us have waited 65 years. Ava took hold of the rope. The bell rang clean across Barrow Street. Its voice passed over the parish roof, the auction warehouse, and the wet brick buildings toward the harbor. Isaac listened until the note faded. "Sounds right," he said. Ava looked through the open engine house doors at her workbench, her tools, and the warm light in the room above. Then she pulled the rope once more, and the bell called her home.